Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video there is a link to get £50 back for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Sleeping Warrior, Arwin, Chocolate Saiyan, Father of a Stolen Child, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Hello.
Morning.
Greetings.
Morning.
The snow is melting.
It's all that climate change, right? It's nothing to do with the cyclical nature of the seasons.
Yeah,
but
it is climate change. It's called spring.
Yeah, the climate is changing, that's correct. Let's not mention global warming, because obviously that would be begging the question of a sphere Earth. But any evidence?
Planar warming.
It's plain warming. I don't think it is. I don't think it is getting warmer. Anyway.
It's like an oven plate. It's warming up.
Warmer in summer. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge? That would be a horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature.
Geometric?
No. Yes, global warming.
If geometric sphere edge horizon, then global warming. Is that the logical fallacy you're presenting here, Arwin?
Yes.
That's useless.
Oh.
Discord, any evidence?
I got
Physical
it.
sphere edge horizons? Anybody at all?
Apparently, the geometric
Adam.
horizon is now the signal sitting on top of the police station in Gotham City.
Oh, it's the projected horizon.
Yeah.
It's a surprise that, because you'd think that given how they qualify how much it's blocking things with feet and inches values, that they would say it's a non-physical location that's projected. This non-physical projected location is blocking it at a very specific feet and inches value with its physical nature. All right, that kind of doesn't work, you realise.
That
Somebody
seems like
send out the curve signal.
It's only blocking it on top of the building, but it's not blocking it at the bat signal itself in the sky.
chocolate. That's a very bad move on their part.
Boom, boom.
Bat move.
As we were discussing it in the pre-show, and Anthony Riley is here for this purpose. Any evidence that we have axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No, because we don't see planes going faster and slower when they go to destinations.
That's correct. Coriolis effect is the effect of us seeing things seem to drift because we're turning underneath them. Seeming because they could be a hovering drone and you rotating underneath it on, say, a roundabout. The drone would appear to move when it's not really moving, it's just hovering. And likewise, it's claimed Earth has that effect. That would be Coriolis effect. Righteous, did you have something to add?
Wait, I'm off mute? Oh yeah, I am.
That's
no,
correct,
nothing.
you are. You are indeed.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Hey, wouldn't that be similar to one of those airport walkways that are on, that move and you get on it, but you don't gain any ground? Conservation of momentum.
Travelator.
Yeah, travelator. So let's say you get on the travelator expecting that it's going to take you from A to B without you walking. And you get on it, but you're always in the same position. Isn't that their argument then?
Yeah, that's their argument. Yeah, as you're standing on the travelator, if there's a guy standing next to the travelator but not part of the travelator's motion, as you get closer to him, from your perspective on the travelator, it looks like he's coming towards you. Now, he's sat reading a paper, just happens to be leaning against the travelator on the other side of it. And he looks like he's coming closer and closer and closer and closer. And you're like, oh, this guy's getting bigger and bigger and bigger as he comes closer with perspective. But he's not moving at all. It's you moving, right? Now, what their argument is to say that what's actually happening is the travelator and you are moving together and nothing around you is drifting relative to you. It's all moving with you. So the guy reading the paper as you move along the travelator is also moving further away from you as you get closer to him. i.e. you're not seeing him get closer. The not actual deflection of the guy getting closer and closer to you as you move towards him. That would be Coriolis deflection if it was on a rotating platform, as they claim we are. In other words, to summarise, they say we've got drift. Drift is things moving apart. Yeah? Like the gyroscope example, right? Gyros move in fixed space, don't they? They just spin. And if you move with a, I don't know, bicycle wheel on the end of your finger, you can turn your finger in all sorts of directions and the bicycle wheel stays basically in the same position as it spins. So it's in fixed space. Well, that's representative of your inertial reference frame. That's where the gyro is spinning. Well, when you look at it and it looks like it's moving inside the cage, well, that's because the cage is moving and the gyro isn't. Now, they claim that there's a 15 degrees an hour turn of the Earth, which would move the cage by that amount, as the gyro spins in its relatively fixed space, in the inertial reference frame. Now, they say that's a demonstration of Earth turning underneath the fixed frame of the gyro. Likewise with the pendulum. The pendulum swings back and forth. That's all pendulums do. Well, why does it knock over the dominoes then? It must be swinging side to side. No, it's claimed there's a 15 degrees an hour turn of the Earth underneath the pendulum. Well, these are all Coriolis effects, i.e. you turning underneath something to make it look like it's doing something it isn't. Well, if that was the case and we were turning underneath stuff not attached at 15 degrees an hour, as Anthony pointed out in the pre-show and in the live show, I think, it would shorten flight times because Earth would be turning underneath them for us to observe this effect of Coriolis deviation. So if we're observing Coriolis deviation, that would be planes in a straight line looking like they're curving, only because we're turning underneath them. It means Earth's turning underneath them, and that doesn't happen.
Yeah, let me re-say
Why
that.
do they?
'Cause, let me re-explain it in there because I wanted to get my head around this because, like, I know it's full of double speak and contradiction, and I wanted to get my head around it because I wanted to understand it. Because I've just been putting it off because Nathan does it. I don't need to because Nathan gets his head. He's understood it, right? So what I realized was that what they're doing is they're saying that we wouldn't expect there to be any rotation because the plane flies with the rotation of the Earth and conserves momentum, right?
Right.
So I was like, okay, let's work out what does that mean. And what I realized is that what they should be doing to conserve the 15 degrees an hour is you've got to do the radius down to the center of the Earth for Manchester, for instance, or Charlottesville in North Carolina. And then you've got to do the radius up to Los Angeles or somewhere in America, whichever. So you get your point A, your point B, and you've got to conserve your 15 degrees of rotation an hour. But the problem is that as the plane gains in elevation and gets higher, that the radius value is getting greater. So the distance between the start point and the end point is also getting bigger because the circumference is getting bigger.
Yes.
And that's inevitable. That's inevitable. They have to do that.
Yes,
But to
even if they move
compensate
in
for that
lockstep motion. That's right. Even if they claim that there is no deviation, there's still going to be the advanced distances as you go higher up over the presupposed wall. That's true.
So they have
True.
they have to speed up to maintain that 15 degrees an hour. But obviously that requires putting energy in to maintain that speed because the planes don't fly in degrees per hour. They travel in miles per hour.
Oh, no,
So
no,
the
sorry,
further-
I've got to correct your misunderstanding. No, it's not the plane that's violating the first law of thermodynamics. If their assumption stands true, God, I hate doing this. I hate working within the assumption that we don't have Coriolis effects when they're arguing with this. But there we go, that's what we're doing. Nevertheless, it's not the plane that's going to violate the first law because it can just increase thrust, decrease thrust, whatever, relative to the claim that it's moving in relation to an Earth that's spinning with the atmosphere spinning in lockstep with it. Well, it's the atmosphere which is completely unattached to the ground beneath, which would have to have an increased velocity at the higher altitude. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's the air that they claim is moving along with the Earth that would have to increase its velocity with relation to the Earth at a higher altitude in order for that explanation to stand true. Well, that is the part that stands in violation of natural law. They're saying, well, it moves, the molecule that's near the ground is moving on the equator at 1,000 miles an hour, but as you increase in elevation, the Earth and atmosphere move in lockstep, total bollocks. But the higher altitude of elevation of atmosphere, oxymoron, is moving faster to keep up with the stuff below it, so they're all relatively moving at the same rate in lockstep. Well, that's the first law of thermodynamics violation right there.
Because the distance is different at elevation. So the only way they can do that is to put more thrust in. Now that means that they've got to travel at a faster speed, but we know they cruise at about 600 miles an hour. So because they're keeping the cruise speed the same, roughly, we also know that the distance then is being compromised, because speed equals distance over time. You can rearrange it, fix the speed, fix the distance, time is the effect. So there has to be a variation in flight times, and that's regardless of whether the Earth's turning or not. So it's like, there's no way around it, guys. You do have to have differences in time.
I think you have to stick with the
I sent you a cool citation about it. I sent it to your Skype, but I also put it in Master B if you want to read it.
Right.
But why don't you
Nathan,
read it?
Nathan, you got some cabbage again, by the way.
Hold on, Alwyn. We'll go to Adam and then we'll come to you in a second. But if Chocolate can read it out, I've got it on screen.
Yeah, it says, bound to the Earth by gravity, most of the atmosphere spins along with it as a result of friction with the ground and viscosity or stickiness of the different layers of air above it. Above 200 kilometers, however, the incredibly thin atmosphere actually spins faster than the Earth. The cause of this bizarre super rotation effect remains unclear, but has also been detected on Venus.
Of course. So just Adam next. Sorry, thank you very much for reading it out, Chocolate. So Adam, you there?
Yeah.
When air molecules,
You like that?
I do like that a lot. It's nonsense.
It makes the point, actually, that I was going to make. I wouldn't argue the plane. As you quite rightly said, the plane has the ability to change its own speed independent of any supposed applied forces. So if you get into that, there's wiggle room. I would just concentrate exactly where you said. The molecule at 1 kilometer, when it has a collision and goes up to 2 kilometers, it's only had elastic collisions. It cannot have increased its relative speed to maintain the same angular speed. That is a straight violation of the law of thermodynamics. It's derived more energy and speed from nowhere, only to maintain the premise that the atmosphere is in lockstep. That's the only reason that you're making this absurd violation.
It's not nowhere. They've got to just hold on.
Can I ask something?
Alwyn, just hold on. No, it's not from nowhere. They say that there's a stickiness, i.e., it's being dragged along. It's the friction that they blame.
Yeah, and
yeah, but the atmosphere isn't a friction material. It's a resistive material, but it's not friction.
Correct. I just want Adam to say it again because he's the one who's bringing this up. So, in terms of the friction, how does that fit in with elastic collisions, Adam?
It doesn't, does it? And friction would, the way you would imply that would be to try and imply some kind of fluid dynamics with regards to large volumes of gases in the atmosphere. And that's what they're trying to apply there. But in terms of gas behavior, there is no friction. There's only diffusion in terms of these interactions. So there is no frictional forces that could then create the effect they're having. And most fundamentally, the effect they're having is basically getting something out of nothing. That's what they're asking to do. Is to generate more energy from less energy or more speed from the same collision. And
perfect.
It's just not...
Perfect. I just want Arwin to go, then I want to summarise, because this is all in reference to an argument that doesn't exist for the globe. But go ahead, Arwin.
Cool. Well, let me step in as Baldwin and completely ruin the point you were going to make by telling you that I think that when an airplane travels, they don't actually take a Euclidean distance to derive their speed from. They actually use the ground distance to calculate their speed, relative speed, because effectively they would go faster, but it would be compensated by the lessening of the air friction due to lower atmosphere. Thus, they would effectively travel faster, but they would consider it based on ground-based speeds. So you wouldn't see that they would be traveling faster, but they would effectively be traveling faster. So there you go.
That was total nonsense. Anyway, this whole idea of whether or not the plane projectile in the example is moving faster or slower is completely irrelevant of the actual claim that the globe makes. The globe claims we have 15 degrees an hour deviation as the Earth rotates underneath. That effect is called Coriolis effect. You, on a non-inertial turning reference frame, observing things not attached in the inertial reference frame seeming to drift as you turn underneath. For Earth to have this effect, we are turning underneath aeroplanes, hot air balloons, snipers' bullets, and footballs, as asserted by Neil deGrasse Tyson. All of those things would drift because it's claimed Earth turns underneath them to give you Coriolis deviation. It is claimed Earth has Coriolis deviation, and all of the arguments we are currently detailing, with the first law of thermodynamics violation, air being velcroed to the Earth, dragged along and increasing its velocity as it increases its altitude, increasing the radius that it's got to track along with, all of that nonsense is flying in the face of the actual globe claim, because all of those things about retaining velocity means you don't have drift. And to observe things drifting as you turn underneath is Coriolis, and that's what they do claim Earth has. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I'm with that. Well, everything else, all the cool stories that they come up with are just trying to tell us why we don't see this drift. And as soon as they start doing that, they're already done.
Exactly.
Because the claim is we do have drift. I mean, it's that
They need adjustments, don't they? They need
Exactly.
adjustments to compensate for why there is no apparent drift. We
I'm
don't
glad
have
you've-
planes flying north and south
I just gave you a
curving.
good explanation.
Oh,
though,
we
and
give
it
up.
was halfway dismissed.
Giving us an argument that's got your explanation for why it tracks with the ground speed. First of all, that's going with our argument, first law of thermodynamics violation, when you say they're taking the ground speed, because that would be increasing in terms of the radius value. So that goes with our argument. Secondly, you gave a contradiction that we wouldn't see it, but it's happening. So I don't want to dissect your constant contradictions. There was at least 3 of them in that statement. Beautiful though it sounded, and there wasn't a single stutter. So maybe a few fundies will actually latch onto it and nod
Hold
along.
on. I wasn't claiming Coriolis drift. The opposite was.
This is how it's getting better at this. That was brilliant. Sorry, kudos. Everyone give him kudos.
Go faster up there, but in a Euclidean setting, but they measure it based on the ground distance. So it's a bar-based speed.
Right, I'm going to have to stop this, right? All Armin's going to now do is rumpus the crap out of the conclusion by repeating the exact same shite through my demolition of it, totally ignoring any rebuttal and rumpusing the entire show. Now, that bit I'm not going to tolerate, Arwin. It's just not going to happen. So, no, I don't need a repetition of it, and I don't need to pull apart all 3 contradictions. 1 is enough. Plenty enough for me to then reiterate my point, which is what I will absolutely now do. Which is to say that it's claimed we have Coriolis deviation on an Earth that turns. That's only in effect if we're turning underneath things. Now, this whole argument is about not turning underneath things, not seeing drift, therefore not having Coriolis effect. And I'm glad Anthony's gone through the ringer and understood implicitly where their non-Coriolis argument for not having drift actually works and falls apart. Because you've got to understand that in case they bring it up, because if you don't, you can't debunk it. But the point I want to stress is that when you get to the point that they say, you're claiming Earth should turn underneath, recognise that it's a burden of proof reversal fallacy, and we are not claiming that. That is their claim that they're effectively arguing against because it doesn't happen. Nothing's demonstrating drift. Earth's not turning underneath. Well, they'd much rather fight for the position where Earth doesn't have to turn underneath to cause drift because we don't see that effect, and justify why we don't see that effect whilst assuming Earth is still turning. Well, that's an argument against Coriolis, and that's where the rubber stamp should come down with debunked. So you're going to now argue about how we don't have drift.
That's right. As a ball representative these days, I have to point out to you that you, as flat earthers, claim that the globe claims there is Coriolis drift.
Perfect. Arwin's timing's impeccable. Yes, kudos again, Arwin. So that is where the magic trick works, through cognitive dissonance rather than intelligence. They will assert that, oh, you're claiming... You're listening, Simon Dan? Yeah? Pay attention. You're claiming that we should have Earth turning underneath. Here's an example of a man and a trampoline moving together whilst travelling and him not drifting. He's not showing 15 degrees an hour turn of the Earth underneath him, exampled by 15 degrees an hour turn of maybe a roundabout underneath a trampoline. Because that would show drift, and that is Coriolis, and that is what the globe claims. But when they get to the wrangle-dangle and lose track of how their argument functions, they suddenly actually realise, like Simon Dan, that we're saying Earth should be turning underneath things. No, you complete clowns. That's just what the globe claims. You just can't defend it as an argument because it doesn't happen. Much easier to tell us that we're claiming it, right? No, and as Anthony actually said that on this show, well, no, it's not that I'm having the burden of proof reversal. I'm saying Earth would be rotating underneath X, Y, and Z. Well, no, you're not claiming that, Anthony. That's their claim. They just position it onto you so they can argue about how they don't see the effect, because we don't see the effect of Coriolis effect.
Can I have one last remark and then I'll shut up as well, Win, please?
Give it to him, just so he shuts up.
Please?
Give it to him.
Yes. So, Nathan, technically, the reference frames of your ball model claim are ruined.
Yeah, the reference frames are used to claim a ball Earth turning underneath as a non-inertial reference frame, and the drift we observe in the inertial reference frame because we turn underneath. That would be two reference frames, non-inertial spinning ball Earth, and inertial whatever is travelling through it and not actually drifting, only seeming to because you turn underneath it. That's two reference frames needed to claim Earth spins. What's that, Simon Dan? What's that I hear you saying to your audience and doesn't need explanation? Might make it onto the most stupid Nathan list, rather than explaining why you're debunking the globe Coriolis claim that needs two reference frames. Yeah, that's because he's so stupid he doesn't realise that they're actually reversing the burden of proof when they put it on us to prove Earth turns underneath stuff with two reference frames. They're just thick. They don't understand their own double-speak cognitive dissonance nonsense.
I agree, but
I tricked you. I said your ball claim, and you said
What?
yes.
You said you were going to stop.
Last word, I thought.
I was arguing with Admasto and Zanuck, and they said our explanation is stupid because it's impossible to leave reference frames. That's what they told me.
You don't have to leave a reference frame to observe Coriolis effect. Anything that's not in the inertial reference frame would be attached to, in the Coriolis example, the non-inertial reference frame that's spinning, and that is where the observation takes place from. So you don't have to leave the reference frame, quite the contrary. You have to be on the turning reference frame, looking at things, moving through the air, and going, oh, look at that plane! It looks like it's drifting. It looks like it's taking a curved path. Well, it's only doing that because we've got Coriolis effect. It's actually me on a turning Earth, non-inertial reference frame, turning underneath it. And it's in a separate second reference frame. You didn't have to leave to watch that claim to be happening effect that we don't observe. And if we did observe planes seeming to curve, then we'd be turning underneath them, shortening their flight times.
That's
Who
what
keeps
I told them,
rumpusing
and they went
who
right
keeps
away to the
rumpusing G+?
projectile.
What's going on?
Bro,
Who
that's
keeps-
that's
rumpusing G+.
Xanax,
Who's rumpusing G+?
who's
No, I was just saying, I told them that, and they went right away to the projectile then. So they jumped back and forth to arguments.
No, see, but that's Xanax's little okey doke, right? He'll try to keep you focused on the projectile and say, well, yeah, you can't leave reference frames. Well, you're not talking about you. You're talking about the observation of the object that just left the reference frame. In the inertial reference frame that you see curving because you're still on the non-inertial reference frame, that's Xanax's little trick. He likes to try to get people with that crap. Just because you're still looking at it doesn't mean it left your reference frame. It's not attached to the non-inertial reference frame anymore. Zanuck, you're already done. Right
Doesn't
there.
matter. You're not detailing what the projectile does. So it leaving, it's like, it doesn't have to be leaving. It could enter your field of view already in the inertial reference frame, like a plane entering your sky. Well, it's claimed that that plane will drift because you're turning underneath it. That's Coriolis effect. It's claimed a globe has that. So look at that plane that's just come into view. Well, it's not that it's left your turning reference frame or that you observed that effect happening. It's you watching it seem to drift on a turning reference frame. And that claim is supposed to be the thing that proves we spin. You looking at things seem to drift as they move straight, but you're turning underneath them, causing a not actual effect to be observed. But that not actual effect is only induced if you're turning underneath stuff, and observing it seem to drift. But the observation is you on a non-inertial turning reference frame claimed to be a turning Earth. So we've got to have drift for us to prove we're spinning, and we don't have drift, so there's no proof we're spinning. Them just begging the question that they all turn together so that they can nicely, conveniently demonstrate how we don't have drift, but I can still assume it's all travelling together in violation of the first law, doesn't cut the mustard when the globe actually does claim we've got Coriolis effect. They just defy it here in the trenches because it's not demonstratable. Nothing's drifting.
Maybe that's why they call it a pseudo force, because it's not demonstratable.
It's not that it's not demonstratable why it's called a pseudo force. It's because the force isn't applicable to the projectile. As you watch the plane move through your field of view, if you're on a roundabout and you go, look at it, it's just turned around in the air. Oh no, it's going the same way again. Oh, it's turned around in the air. No, you're just turning underneath it on a bloody roundabout. Well, that effect of it seeming to turn around but not actually is the plane moving in a straight path over your head and you seeing it seem to completely change direction as you turn underneath it. Well, you are actually turning underneath it. Now, let's say for the sake of argument that that was a drone instead of a plane, and it looks like it's coming towards you and going away on the roundabout. Well, if it was in your path, you would still smack into it. So despite it being a pseudo effect, it's not that the drone's just flown into your face. You've moved into its path because you're turning underneath it. So yeah, the pseudo force of Coriolis was the effect, but it definitely still made contact with your face even though it was hovering. The reason it's called a pseudo force is because it wasn't the force of somebody holding the controls for the drone intentionally flying it at your face. You were just on a roundabout turning towards it. And likewise, Los Angeles would be turning towards an aeroplane as it was in the air, shortening the flight time, something that does not happen.
Right, Nathan, can I ask a YouTube technical question? Because I don't see the chat in the YouTube video. Is that on purpose or?
I don't tend to put it up as much because it's members only. Is there something interesting going on in there?
Well, there's lots of super chats.
They'll get
for
left out, I promise.
All right, just asking.
We're into it, man. We're into the nitty-gritty of what I've now come to realise isn't through intelligence. They're not claiming not to have drift because they're smart. They're claiming it because they're in cognitive dissonance. We point out there's no drift, there's no 15 degrees an hour, even though it's absolutely claimed to be happening by footballs, bullets, pendulums, and gyroscopes. It's claimed to be an Earth turn underneath for not actual deflection. That's Coriolis effect. It's absolutely claimed Earth has Coriolis. We point out there isn't any. They get into arguing about why there isn't any and justifying why there isn't any. Well, that's simultaneously holding two positions. Earth has Coriolis effect, an observation of not actual deflection as you turn underneath, and Earth doesn't have Coriolis effect. You wouldn't see 15 degrees an hour turn of the Earth. You and your reference frames are ruined. That's cognitive dissonance. Now, that's a position where they will mentally do the gymnastics without even trying, because you can't hold two positions simultaneously. When you do, we get the convoluted cluster screw of nonsense that we get in regards to this subject. Not through intelligence, through cognitive dissonance. Holding two positions simultaneously that are in stark contrast to one another. Earth has drift, 15 degrees an hour, turn of the Earth, underneath things not attached. Earth doesn't have drift. Earth and atmosphere move as one, not demonstrating anything moving apart. Those are two completely different positions. Only one can be true, and it's the latter. There is no drift. Not because we assume Earth's turning and atmosphere's turning with it, but because there just isn't any drift. Well, the drift that we're supposed to have would be because Earth's turning underneath, and it is not. It's just that simple. I can summarise it because I don't hold both positions. And when it's claimed, you say Earth's turning underneath planes. Well, no, we don't claim that. No, I don't claim it either. You do. You're just about to launch into a defence of why we don't observe the effect that's supposed to prove Earth spins.
Yeah, I seen that Coriolis too when I was driving around the roundabout in the Bronx. I'll never forget that. I looked up and I saw a plane and it was deviating. So, and I mean, you could demonstrate it on a roundabout as well. I don't understand what the problem is.
Coriolis is real, and it's claimed Earth has the effect. When we detail the effect of Coriolis, they tell us how it shouldn't be happening. And the reason they tell us why it shouldn't be happening is because it isn't happening.
It's the adjustment that's necessary to hide the fact that it's missing.
Exactly. Right, I'm going to do a few shout-outs. So, shout-out to Del West Watson, who says, some cabbage! And then a little call me sign, I think. No, it's a thumbs up, my bad. So, shout-out to Del West Watson again for the cabbage. Really appreciate the support. Here we go. Retro Bill, more cabbage. The necessary antecedent to coleslaw. Thank you very much for the $15 Retro Bill. Really appreciate the cabbage. I mean, the support. Shout out to Julio Pabon, who's making a Caesar salad and says some cheddar. Thank you very much indeed for the super chats. I hope this meme doesn't continue. Although I do appreciate the support. So, yes, Del West Watson's drawn a close to that cabbage and said, "Dosh!" Much appreciated, really appreciate it. And the thumbs up that goes with it. Sasha, or Unitox Femu, who's on the panel currently, says, Simon Dan proved that we can jump on a tractor. Indeed. He also reiterated the fact that there's no drift and gave an example of a man not drifting at 15 degrees an hour, which was very nice of him. You know, we appreciate that sort of thing. Another shout out to Retro Bill, who says, Fight the Flat Earth is still chanting that Coriolis is, quote, all about conservation of momentum, end quote. Boy, these guys are thick. Yeah, that's what cognitive dissonance will do for you. When you have a detailed explanation of how Earth should have Coriolis effect, that's 15 degrees an hour drift, he'll go on about how conservation of momentum explains how that is Coriolis effect, the example of no drift. Right on. Then, last but by no means least, another shout out to James Richard. If you walk into a seafood place wearing a mask and you can smell the seafood, the mask is not stopping a virus. This is the so-called science that so-called scientists are telling us to do. Damn Globers. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Off topic, but very amusing.
That's a
Hey,
good
Nathan.
Yes.
All this cabbage certainly will help your YouTube celery.
Celery. Oh, that's priceless. Best pun to date. Old slow gags. Keep them up. Anyway, any evidence you can have gas?
A little. That last one.
It bugged you. What? Do you sell masks? in your
Yeah, a
chemist?
little bit. I mean, a virus size and a aromatic compound size are very, very different. The thing I wouldn't say is whether I think the masks could stop that you necessarily breathe it in if all the air you breathed in went through the filter, and if none of the air you breathed out went through the filter, then they might have a role. But I think in terms of molecule size, that's a bit harsh. You will smell a fart, won't you? But they're much smaller molecules. The issue is, I love the ones you've seen where people are in the cold and they breathe out, and you just see these plumes of gas, because gas goes in all directions, you know. So when you breathe, it doesn't go, oh, I'll go through the filter. It's nearest, due to entropy, its quickest route out of that mask is the route it'll take, which tends to be the less sealed areas around your face.
Right. It takes the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey Adam, don't the M95 masks, don't they have a valve though? So it only stops you from breathing something in, but when you exhale, whatever you're breathing out, it still goes out through the valve. Not through the
I'm struggling to hear you, bro. I'm not.
Too much background noise, Paul. Try again.
Okay, sorry. Maybe she'll stop. Don't the M95 masks though have a valve when you breathe out?
Yeah, a pressure release valve. Yeah. Is that pressure release valve require more or less pressure than the hole at the side of your nose?
It needs more pressure. So it really wouldn't stop the virus if you're breathing out, which that's what you're saying about the mask you're supposed to do. That's my point.
Okay. I think Adam's point is that when you breathe out, you're going to find that the gases take the path of least resistance. It's like if you fill a sieve and it's filled with such a velocity of water that it can overflow the top of it, it's not going to continue to go through the holes in the sieve. It'll just spill over the top because that's a lesser resistive path. Well, it's the same with the gases. They're just going to take the path of least resistance.
No, I get that. My point though is they're saying that these N95 masks prevent the virus. If they've got a valve in it and the filter is not being filtered out, then really the N95 mask is not stopping. Unless everybody's wearing an N95 mask, it would not stop the virus. That's my point.
Look, I don't really want to get into this. We've got a lot
Just
of
to
Orwellian
remind everyone,
nonsense
it's
currently
Flat Earth
about
debate.
masks. Hold on, Neil.
Sorry.
Hold on. We've got a lot of Orwellian nonsense, right, in terms of masks, because for every single report that you will read about the masks being 100% effective or effective in some manner, you'll read another contrasting description that says they're completely ineffective for various different reasons. Now, this is Orwellian, and personally, I'm just not... all of it's nonsense. I just don't want to get into this. Adam, do you want to close out this somehow? Hopefully, you can draw a summary.
Well,
to this.
I think we'll keep it that, you know, again, irrespective, it's a good demonstrator what we're discussing there about gas behavior, things we know, and it's that gas behavior that raises the question there, and it's that gas behavior that ballers want to contradict, or exactly what we were just talking about in terms of what Tony brought up.
Epic.
It's that gas behavior that they're denying.
Perfect. You've done the perfect segue. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
You need a container for a vacuum on Earth as well, don't you? You can't have a vacuum on Earth without a container. What makes you think that you can have pressure in space without a container if you can't have a vacuum on Earth without a container?
Fair enough. Any evidence that you can have a vacuum without a container?
2 containers.
Someone explain
Show
that
up
in
with a
case there's
couple of
any.
containers.
Hold on, there might be newbie audience members that don't get that in joke. Can you, either Chocolate or someone else, anybody, explain why that's funny?
Because somebody tried to prove how you could have gas pressure without a container using 2 containers.
Indeed. You challenge a fundy to show gas pressure without a container, and your most common response will be showing up with 2 containers to demonstrate gas pressure without a container. Unbelievable. James, thank you for the super chat. You don't need to apologise for bringing up the mask thing. You're super chatting to do it. You don't need to apologise far from it. Anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Technically, you just brought it back up, though, just in case you were actually genuinely feeling guilty.
Oh gosh.
Any evidence
Yeah,
that this? Go on.
No, I was going to say I'm still stuck on the seafood versus smell food. So I mean, if you're seeing when it first came up, it go seafood. Okay, well then it went to smell food, but lost the power of that when it happened.
Hopefully, we can unmask the distance to the sun next.
Very nice.
No.
What is the sun?
I don't know. That's not what I want. Distance to it. There's a claimed one out there.
No, they can't measure it. They've never measured it. I like your unmasked intro, though.
Got to segue somehow, thanks to James. Any evidence?
Why can't we get there?
No, it's still the interruptions, Neil. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating?
Yeah, I want to know why we can't get to the sun. Come on, this is not.
Oh, I thought you meant the next
We have
housekeeping
technology
question.
today.
Sorry, that was completely unreasonable of me. I thought you were segueing and you were actually very much on topic with distance to the sun. Why can't we get there? As in, why can't we get to the sun? Very good question. I don't know. Ask Icarus.
I think that would be
There was
based
an
on
article that came
your
out.
prior question, which was, what is the sun? I think we'd have to know what that is first.
Well, I see it every day.
There was
So
an article-
it's something.
Paul, trying to get a word in there?
So there was an article back in the day when North Korea supposedly landed on the sun. So that's real, right?
There was an article that said that what landed on the sun?
North
North
Korea
Korea.
landed on the sun.
Well, that's why.
Wasn't that when they? Wasn't
on,
that when
that's
they
why-
went at night?
No, that's why their names start with Sun, Young Moon.
So did Chocolate just say it's okay they went at night?
Yes.
That's priceless. It's okay, they went to the sun. No, they went at night. It was okay.
Exactly.
Wouldn't JLB debunk that by saying that North Korea doesn't exist?
He doesn't say, he never says anything in such absolute terms. I'm going to defend JLB on this, right? He puts the question out there for you to ponder, right? He wouldn't. I doubt you will be able to find an explicit quote from JLB where he says North Korea doesn't exist.
No, I agree there. But he did really raise a good point. It could all just be. You're not allowed to go there. Who knows what's there? Could be Disneyland.
I agree. It's
You're
shrouded
not
in
allowed to
mystery.
go there.
Well, it's not that you're not allowed to. Well, yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, when I was in South Korea, obviously it was quite interesting to me to ask them about North Korea and what they knew about it, and they knew virtually nothing. Yeah, very, very little. All they parroted back to me when I asked was the propaganda that I already knew from the telly. That's all they gave me in South Korea. Very little.
Well, we have the same problem here in the States. There's West Virginia, but there's no East Virginia.
Yeah, but they're not putting out pictures of like the same roadway every time with like what looks like fake missiles that are held together with sellotape and dreams rolling down the same roadway in each bit of propaganda in East Virginia, are they?
Well, maybe they got the same backstage crew that gives NASA all their props.
Why are you pushing me onto this like semi-interesting subject that I'm absolutely in no way keen to get out into my public arena, right? This sort of speculation from JLB, I highly encourage you all go and look at JLB speculation. And as I say, it is him putting it in your court for you to speculate about these things, right?
Any evidence of nuclear weapons?
Oh my God, what is the show to come? Look, I can show you, right, nuclear weapons are totally ineffective against cameras. So you can find plenty of footage of things getting blown up, right? And the cameras are fine, so it's all real.
That used to bug me out. I was like, wait a minute. How is this camera just filming this explosion and the camera's just chilling? I don't
Chocolate.
understand.
Chocolate.
Even as a kid, I was like, wait a minute.
Chocolate.
What is that? Go ahead,
it's-
I'm sorry.
It's the same camera that they took to the moon that filmed their takeoff from the moon.
Oh, like the super level Hasselblad. Yeah.
But they
That's-
have an answer for that, don't they?
I don't know, probably. Who cares?
Keep the Maltesers. I'll have the Maltesers.
I'll have the
Maltesers
Maltesers.
too.
Anthony is in a shop.
Sorry.
Off mute.
Yeah.
Look, you better be ordering me a Maltese. I don't know what that is, but
Sounds
I'll
good.
take one.
Sorry, I thought-
Sandwich.
Yeah, I've muted you, you bugger. Sorry, I was just getting
Sorry,
my
I thought,
Maltesers
I
ordered in.
thought it was on mute.
Yes, we know. You don't have to justify
Can you give me an
being
egg
off mute.
sandwich while you're
You,
there?
you were on mute, and then you unmuted to make everyone hear that you're ordering a Maltese. Now I want to know what
That'd
that
be
is.
a sunny side egg.
Oh God!
She's deciding whether to give Ferrero Rochers to someone or Maltesers, and I'm like, give me the Maltesers.
Hello, educational live show running.
I know.
Next
God.
question.
But that's chocolate, though. That's good stuff.
Somebody shoot me in the head.
Next question. Come on, next question.
Ugh. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the center of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Nonsense.
Ferrero Rochers.
Not bad, not bad.
That's
Not
a good
bad.
one.
Yeah,
I
very
mean,
good.
that actually has a
That's not been
core,
said.
so you're not that
And it is
bad.
molten.
I would have also
Not quite
accepted.
iron, but
I would have
It's
also accepted.
chocolate. It's
I would have
molten
also
chocolate.
accepted Cadbury's cream egg
Yeah,
if I can get it in.
I think we should have Ferrero Rochers as a legitimate answer.
That's gonna be my answer now.
Yo, you got to put that up as a meme.
Ferrero Rochers are legit, man. Yum, yum, yum. Coming up to New Year, otherwise known as Easter.
Hang on, have we not missed one?
Yeah, we've missed several.
No, we
We're all
missed the
over the
housekeeping
place.
question.
We haven't missed anything. You've just not been paying attention.
Okay, we need to go back to the gravity one.
We'll get there. You want it now? Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Yes, there is a claim, Nathan. Someone sent me a link. His name is Water's Always Flat or Water's Always Level or something like that. And he had a debate with Fight the Flat Earth yesterday or the day before. And you can check it out on Fight the Flat Earth channel. And Fight the Flat Earth claims that there are 5 scientifically verified, experimentally proven pieces of evidence for gravity. I'd like to see these, Fight the Flat Earth. So if you ever feel free, join, present them, and we'll tell you why they're not scientific evidences at all.
Need
For big
He did give them, he
space-time?
did explain what they were.
5 sets of hypotheses with 5 observed phenomena, presumably all the same, right? They'll all be gravity. So all we need is
Well, one of them was the Eddington experiment. That's just simply an observation, but he cites that as a proof of gravity. Well, we know that it's just a observation, so that lacks experimental application. So it cannot be an experimental validation of gravity. But we need to know what his definition of gravity is here as well.
So
Yeah.
the Eddington, to my memory, was supposedly, I think Adam put the picture of the telescope they used. Some star was seen from behind the sun or something like that.
Yeah.
How's that prove gravity?
Sounds like an observation to me.
Hold on.
It was a
Go on.
It was a claim that supported Einstein's theory of bendy light, but Craig's presenting it as an argument to prove gravity. And he hasn't got any. Well, I don't want to put words in his mouth because I don't know how he explains it, but I'd love to hear it.
We get it right.
That's supposed to be the experimental validation for the.
Oh, hold on. So, if it's experimental, right, it's an observed phenomena with an explanation of its presumed cause being validated by an experiment. What you say, it sounds like what you're presenting is an observed phenomena that isn't gravity. Am I correct?
I think so. I don't want to put words into his mouth, but it sounds that way, yeah.
Well, that sounds like bad news for the claim of experimentation then, doesn't it? Especially if the claim of experimentation is supposed to be proving gravity.
Yeah, it's not good at all.
Didn't that also come 4 years after the general theory of relativity was even proposed?
I just want to get one more thing in. Sorry, it's on that lines though, Chocolate. I just wanted anybody who doesn't give me... So people don't give me crap in the comments. The reason I've positioned gravity in this instance as the dV, the dependent variable, the observed phenomena, is because that is expressly what it is described as currently by Einsteinian descriptions. So just in case anyone says, well, no, we're going to have the IV, the cause of gravity, not that they're ever going to be varying and manipulating that, but that's besides the point. Currently, the effect is gravity. That's the current pseudoscience. So therefore, dV's got to be gravity if he's claiming science for it. It's like, what are you going to be varying and manipulating to validate cause of this effect? Well, if he's going to be, again, claiming gravity, he better be claiming that he's bending space-time as the effect. Now, that could be loosely tied to the phenomena you gave me. Loosely, I say. But if you're not distributing mass in some uneven way as the cause, then this isn't Einsteinian gravity that he's going to be validating. Not to mention the fact that all of those descriptions that I've positioned as IVs and DVs are only taking place in conceptual mass anyway. None of this is physical. So this is nonsense right off the bat. But I just wanted to position it correctly with the DV being described as the effect of gravity, which is what it's currently described with by Einstein.
He did make a couple of other interesting claims. One of the claims, he said that he understands scientific method very well, and he gave an example of an independent variable being the sun moving across the night sky, across the day sky. He said if you sit there at midday and the moon's at zenith, and then 10 minutes later it's moved by some degree, then he says that is a valid scientific independent variable. And he even got his audience to confirm with him that he was correct. And all of his audience think that the sun is a valid independent variable because you can allow it to just move, and then that is manipulation according to them. And I was like, I can't believe I'm hearing this. This is outrageous.
Well, I'll clarify what qualifies as an independent variable in a second, but I will shout out James Richards first, although there is a couple of other super chats that I'll shout out as well. But just try and remember what James Richards said because it's on topic. If the sun cannot be triangulated and located, and we don't know what it is, gathering a measurement to its distance is impossible. Very succinctly said. Thank you very much for the super chat, James Richard. Also, Acumvirus, my bad. Unitox Femu says, Acumvirus, the problem is they don't understand. So thank you very much for the super chat. And also, Julia Pabon says, Dos pesos. Thank you very much indeed.
Nathan, before you go, did Anthony just say Fight the Flat Earth said that his claim was the sun moved?
His claim was that the sun moving across the day sky is a valid independent variable.
What's moving? The sun or the
sun?
Earth?
Yeah, the sun.
It's interesting.
Okay.
Yes, do you see his point, Anthony?
Yeah. He's arguing that it's flipped it the other way around so that it's Earth rotating would be the independent variable in his model.
Right. Well, Anthony, all they have to do is, does the time change on the clock as the sun moves across the sky?
Yes, it does.
It's worse
So-
than that, Tony.
So that's the cause. That's the cause.
That's correct.
Oh yeah,
Time.
the time's always the cause in a scientific experiment, apparently.
No.
Tam's right. Fundamentally, that's so perverted because they're saying that it is a manipulable, and therefore suggesting that the even if you could manipulate his path, but fundamentally, that's not what they're saying is happening in their model. That path is a Coriolis path due to our rotation.
Correct. In other words, if you're going to say, well, that sun's movement is going to be my independent variable, it's like, well, it's only a not actual drift of the sun. It's claimed to be Earth turning underneath that causes that motion. So you're going to say the not actual movement of the sun is your independent variable? Well, no.
Yeah.
Also,
So let's
isn't
put-
the independent variable supposed to be purposely manipulated by the researcher or scientist?
Thank you. Yes, Chocolate. Yes, you reminded me. I said I'd cover that. So that you've got to have 3 criteria if you're going to be an independent variable or qualify as being an independent variable. One is it's your presumed cause of the effect. In other words, that is the thing that you're going to say is going to cause the effect that you're observing or studying. So if you vary it, it causes it. It is the presumed cause. Secondly, it's got to be real. In other words, there's no varying and manipulating gravity or bending conceptual mediums or anything of that sort of nature. Abstract things cannot be varied and manipulated. So it's got to be real. Third, it's got to be variable by you, the researcher. You have got to be physically able to vary and manipulate that which you assume causes the effect. For it to be a variable, it's got to be real. You've got to be able to vary it, and by definition, it is your presumed cause of the effect.
What happened to just wiggle it?
Yeah, wiggle it, exactly. That's the part 3. You've got to be capable of varying and manipulating it. Well, that's Anthony's wiggle it just a little bit, is you being able to vary it. Vary it is wiggle it.
Yeah, we don't hear it no more, though. I thought that was going to catch on.
He got
It
several
did catch on
copyright
for a few
claims.
weeks. Yeah, it lost momentum. It didn't conserve its angular momentum, did it?
Yeah, it's because after a while, science isn't proving things anymore. So
Oh, that was the other thing he said. Science doesn't prove anything. He said it disproves things.
which is cool because he was just trying to present science to you, huh?
Do I have to cover
I
that?
don't know how he knows all these things, though. I mean, I can understand it if he was new to the topic, but he absolutely knows all these things. He was literally lying to his audience. So what I do want to do, he pointed out to his own audience that he's challenged Quantum Eraser for a debate on any show at any time. Fight the Flat Earth, you can join this show anytime you want. But if you are going to join, it's to debate. It's not to reproduce and rebroadcast. It's to actually prove that gravity has got 5 experimentally valid scientific proofs for gravity. That's what you need to demonstrate. So look forward to that happening never.
Now, he'll just rumpus the whole time. He's been here.
When he came here, he was just worried about how many viewers he had instead of actually proving his claim of gravity, which he told us
he claimed
is gravity creates the force of gravity, which was hilarious. Whatever that
He,
means.
cla-
He kept
claimed
calling
that he-
Nathan Flappy.
yeah, he claimed that he destroyed Nathan and that Quantum Eraser's scared of him. And he ignored, he rejects the argument that we just don't have time for him because the guy's an idiot. He thinks that we think that he's an idiot is just something that he can flip off. No, you are an idiot, Fight the Flat Earth. You lie about your audience about things that you know are false, and you did it in that hangout with that guy. It's just, I don't know how you get away with it. I honestly don't.
Is that why you care?
He's more worried about his subs.
I don't care. And neither does
I
Quantum
care
Eraser.
because it's what he's providing is some form of education, but it's the same education that we got when we were kids. It's the stuff that makes you think things that are not actually true.
It's not
I have
his
a problem
fault.
with that.
It's not his fault. If the sheep are going to be dumb enough to believe him, it's their fault too.
So Retro
what
Bill's got a
Anthony's
question
showing.
for you, Anthony. It says, but Anthony, if time can be bent, as in space-time, surely it can be an independent variable.
If time can be bent, it can be in. Yeah, you can go on and bend time.
Exactly. Perfect.
Is
Yeah,
time
show us that,
physical?
Retro Bill. Just show us time. That would be the concept of time. And once you've done that, which you won't, show us you bending it.
Yeah.
Thank you for the super chat. In all seriousness, thank you very much. Your point has clearly been made by Anthony very well. Thanks, Anthony. Thanks, Retro Bill. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Not yet.
9.
Last but by no means least, any evidence of the R value, that would be Earth radius.
That's been debunked by the Black Swan.
If the Earth is a sphere, radius 3959, then every distance to horizon, that would be the physical geometric spherohorizon formerly claimed to block boats and buildings with its physicality, can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. We have demonstrated beyond all certitude that the horizon is beyond the physical limitations of a geometric sphere edge that's claimed to block boats and buildings into the distance with its physicality, by showing it beyond the parameters in the Black Swan image, i.e. the horizon is beyond 10 miles, when it's supposed to be at 1.2, beyond its physical geometric limitations, debunking the notion that we have a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon. And oh, how they cry, nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve. The geometric horizon only exists in the maths, even though it's claimed to be proven out by looking at a horizon and basing how much it's blocked stuff at the bottom with a feet and inches value based on its physicality. So the globe has been debunked. Look into the Black Swan if you haven't already.
So if the geometric horizon only exists in the math, why were they saying all these years prior to the Black Swan, that is, that it was the reason to block the bottoms of boats and buildings?
Because until then we hadn't identified that the geometric limitations of a sphere edge geometric horizon would be at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet and no further than. As soon as they are beyond those distances, their limitations have been broken as geometric. And their excuse thereafter is to say that it's bent. The line to the horizon is being refracted. Therefore, not geometric, not a tangent point. The horizon's not a tangent point claimed as being physical anymore, and you can't do geometry. And that would be the end of the globe model, as it's claimed to be a physical geometric sphere edge that's claimed to be the horizon, and they're telling us how non-geometric, non-physical it is currently in rebuttal to this Black Swan argument.
What a victory.
Indeed. With that, I'll say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who liked, shared, commented, joined, smashed the super chat, and all that good stuff. Another massive thank you to Michael, you know who you are, for supporting me all this good time over on PayPal. So massive thank you to Michael. Below this video there is a link to get £50 back for you if you swap your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!